I'm excited for this episode to talk about one-room schoolhouses because I honestly haven't given much thought to it since I left high school. Do you ever have the dream where you don't graduate high school in your dream?
No.
Did you know that's a common dream?
I did not.
I have it all the time. So I just got nervous. I paused because I thought, wait, did I graduate high school? Yes, that was just a dream. My teeth are not falling out. That's another common one.
Really?
That your teeth are falling out?
I didn't know that.
Well, your teeth falling out, it typically means you're telling a lie. And I've had that dream over and over.
And this shocks us how?
I'm making my way through the drip, drip, drop.
All right, class is in session. Welcome to the Cydni and Sher podcast. I do have something I must say that first blew my mind with the topic of one-room schoolhouses, the beginning of public school. I remember listening to a TED Talk where the guy talked about public school systems and he talked it up. He was like, there were less hours, there was more recess, and he sold me on the idea. Well, while I am studying this, guess what I come to find out? The reason they had less schools because they were working full time. They had jobs. So don't lie to me, TED Talker. I was so mad. I was like, wait a second. So you're going to display this like kids need more play. So we are going to illustrate this fact with public schools in the 1800s. Okay, but they were working in the mines. They had less school because they were providing for a family of 7.
Yeah, that's true.
I just had to say that.
Okay, Cydni, as you've already talked about, we are going to talk about how one-room schoolhouses used to be set up in early America. This was started by the Pilgrims.
Oh, wait. Sher, there's no way you're going to be able to continue with the outline until I tell you some of the first names for schools. Sorry. Why did you try?
I don't know.
But if you don't let me say it, I won't hear anything you're saying.
Okay, let us have it, Cydni.
Okay. I loved these names so much. I'm going to start with just a lame one. It was called the Strange School. And a historian I listened to, she said that they usually named the schools after something that was going on in the town or like a nickname for the school or sometimes history like George Washington. But those are not the ones I'm going to tell you about because they didn't pique my interest, but this did. So I loved Last Chance School.
That's where I work right now.
And then Disappointment Creek. I really loved that one.
That's what every teacher wants to name the school.
And then Gravely Run.
Oh my goodness.
I love that one. I was trying to decide, is it because people had to walk so far to get there that some of them died, so they called it Gravely? Or was it that the teacher was like, this is a disaster? And then the last one I'll share with you, even though I have a list of 50, I just thought for sure it was named after my children. It's called the Bellyache School.
That's awesome.
Look, half the class is missing yet again. Silly bellyaches going around again.
All right. As I was saying, Cydni, today we are going to talk about those one-room schoolhouses. They were first set up by the Pilgrims, and then the rest of the 13 colonies are going to start copying the Pilgrim system. And our education system was set up very similar to this until about the late 1800s, but definitely the early 1900s is when it all started changing.
And you might be wondering, why would you want to listen to an episode on this topic? But Sher has a good answer why you should. Is that good?
That was so mean. Last week, we talked about learning and wisdom. And so we thought that we might want to look at how education was set up because our early founders really did focus on not just learning, but students gaining wisdom. And the best way to do that, they found, was with these one-room schoolhouses.
That was on the fly, and that was good.
So education in early America wasn't just about math or reading, but the purpose was to teach 3 things: morals, religion, and knowledge. Now, just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. I'm going to focus on morals and religion to get started with, because to our early founders, education had to be rooted in morals and religion, or else it was pointless. Our early founders believed that old deluded Satan wanted to keep men from knowledge of the scriptures. So kids were taught to read by reading the Bible. How's that?
I don't hate it. I love the idea. Actually, when we lived in Denver, I met a woman who learned how to read when she was 50 by reading scriptures. And I always thought that was such an incredible story.
That's awesome. I've heard that a few times also, that people have learned to read when they're older by reading scriptures. I think that's really cool.
I believe Ben's grandma learned another language by reading the Book of Mormon in a different language. That could be a lie. I feel like it's a good story, but I feel like it's mostly true. There's something there.
I think it's a great story.
Leave that in.
So the Pilgrims came up with something called the New England Primer. It's going to carry on into the 13 colonies and in the founding of our country. It was a picture book with rhymes to help students learn to read. Other colonies then copied it. So kids were taught alphabet letters with Bible-based rhymes. So for example, A was for Adam, and the rhyme was, in Adam's fall, we sinned all. Get it?
Yeah, that's uplifting.
How about this one? I really like this one. H is for heart. So book and heart must never part, and that's referring to the Bible. Or for the letter J, Job fills the rod, yet blesses God. That's catchy. I like this one. R is for Ruth. Young pious Ruth left all for the truth.
I'm really getting these down now thanks to this poetry.
Oh, good. What the teacher might say is, if I'm the teacher, I would say, in Adam's fall, and then the students would repeat back, we sinned all. So that's how they started learning the alphabet, was with these rhymes going back and forth.
This is wild because Titus and I, we did talk about the alphabet and how they did it. And he helped me. He said, well, now it's like A is for Gen Alpha and B is for Bussin', D is for Drip, R is for Riz, and also S is for Sus or Sigma.
That's really great. And what I love about what you just said there, Cydni, is how it ties in so well with what our founders wanted, with education being rooted in morals and religion. I think your kids just nailed it there perfectly, of exactly what our founders wanted.
No cap.
Or not. Cap.
Absolutely cap.
All right. What our founders did is they used catechisms to help students learn. And what that is, it's a form of questions and answers used to help instruct the kids. They had a total of 8 levels that they needed to pass, and you could go at your own pace. And I just want to give some examples of a level 1 test. So level 1, the question would be, what is the chief end of man?
Marriage.
That's the end?
Yeah, that's the end of man.
The answer that they were supposed to give is, man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. I can tell you didn't go to this one-room schoolhouse, Cydni.
No, I went to the real life schoolhouse. I see the look in Ben's eyes.
Okay, another example is, what rule hath God given to direct us, how we may glorify and enjoy him? And the kids would say back, the word of God, which is contained in the scriptures of the Old and New Testaments. Now, the reason I chose these questions is because I love that they learn that God is joy. I think that is so great. I always think of the Pilgrims or the early colonists as being so strict and rigid, which I know compared to us, they definitely were. But I also love that they were teaching kids that how to have joy and to find joy was through God. I think that is so awesome.
I think it's awesome as well, but I do feel this deep feeling that had I gone to this school, they would have made me stay in the mines longer than the other kids. They'd be like, hey, do you want overtime? And it's just to keep me out of the classroom because I can't even pay attention long enough to hear that whole question.
Your teachers would have been saying, Cydni fills the rod, and then they bless God. That's what would have happened.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I think I would have been that one that collected dead bodies during time of,
What?
you know, having you ever seen that documentary? What is it called? Monty Python?
Oh, yeah. Bring out your dead.
Yeah, I think that's my job.
Okay, that's horrifying. All right, I'm going to give you one more question. It was on a level 1. It's, who is the redeemer of God's elect? And the answer is, the only redeemer of God's elect is the Lord Jesus Christ, who, being the eternal Son of God, became man, and so was and continues to be God and man in 2 distinct natures and one person forever. And I love how they're showing the children who our Savior is and that we have the potential to be one with him forever. And then try this one out because I don't even understand it.
This is still level 1.
Yeah. You ready? I'm just going to read it. Okay. What are the benefits which in this life do accompany or flow from justification, adoption, and sanctification?
I believe that teacher was a drunk. You know, like sometimes you just use big words. You're not sure what they mean.
You just want to sound smart?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you the answer they're supposed to say. Go ahead and try to understand it.
I'm still lost. I just got stuck on who is God's elect. That's where I was at with this. This is why I went and go to school. And I was like, there's probably some woman who doesn't overcook her funnel cakes and like air dries her cardigan.
I'm sure that's it, because that's all God cares about. Like when I read the scriptures, it talks about
Like air drying
and
your
air
cardigan.
drying.
Yeah.
That's all I
If you're
read
going to
about.
be a good pioneer woman, then air dry your cardigan.
Well, and that's another thing is the scriptures always say, thou shalt be a good pioneer woman over and over again.
Yeah, I'm glad we're reading the same Bible.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer to
Right.
that question
Okay,
again.
pay attention.
So the question again are, what are the benefits which in this life do accompany or flow from justification, adoption, and sanctification? The answer the kids are supposed to give. The benefits which in this life do accompany or flow from justification, adoption, and sanctification are assurance of God's love, peace of conscience, joy in the Holy Ghost, increase of grace, and perseverance therein to the end. I just want to point out that they're using that word joy, and they're teaching the kids how to be happy. This is a really valuable lesson to learn, and this is truth. And to them, it was basic knowledge, and this is what led to wisdom. I love this.
I think we call Titus right now and we ask him this question and we compare.
I think it's a great idea.
Really? Should I?
Yeah. You ready, Titus?
Yep.
What are the benefits which in this life do accompany or flow from justification, adoption, and sanctification? Got any ideas, Titus?
I don't even know what that means.
All right, wait. What does sus mean?
Suspicious.
Bam. See, my kid's a freaking genius in the modern day.
You nailed it.
Thank you for your help. I'll be home soon. Empty that dishwasher.
I love you.
Love you too. Bye, buddy.
I'm so confused. Okay, I love you.
Bye. Now you know how well of a teacher I am in my home. We can't even get through level 1.
I wouldn't be able to get through level 1 either, but I'm going to tell you something I really do like about this. I really like that everything so far has been an oral test and I don't have to grade it on paper. I am so sick of grading. I'm fine if I never have to do it ever again in my life.
That's more than fair. I also prefer oral testing over, well, I don't know, because marking C down the middle is not that hard. But I feel like I could talk my way out of stuff pretty good. So I think I could have potentially made it to level 2.
Yeah, I think you could have.
Thanks.
All right, but back to our one-room schoolhouse. Our founders also believed that the Bible should just be used as a textbook itself. So as the U.S. gained their freedom from Britain, they wanted to make sure that was happening. And at one point, Congress even printed their own Bible to make sure that everyone was getting a copy of the Bible.
If I reprinted my own Bible, it would not be good.
It would be sus.
It would be super sus.
All right, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, his name was Benjamin Rush. And I want to read to you what he said about education. He said, "The only foundation for a useful education in a republic is to be laid in religion. Without this, there can be no virtue. And without virtue, there can be no liberty. And liberty is the object and the life of all republican governments." Our founders understood that if we did not teach religion in our schools, that it was going to make it a lot more difficult to actually have a republic because only virtuous people can be free. And they understood that. But are you ready for this next quote from Benjamin Rush, though, Cydni?
Yeah.
"The great enemy of the salvation of man, in my opinion, never invented a more effectual means of extinguishing Christianity from the world than by persuading mankind that it was improper to read the Bible at schools." That is what our founders thought. And that is why they put the Bible in schools, is because they understood this was what Satan wanted to have happen, was to get rid of religion out of schools, because that will kill freedom and virtue faster than anything.
It's really wild to reflect on what it took to get the Bible into people's hands. And then they taught from it to then now have it again out of the school. I was thinking it's interesting that those topics are supposed to be taught at home now, but in a time where both parents so often have to work. It seems a little bit sus.
Very good use of the word. All right, back to our founders. They believed that education should also develop your mind. They wanted students to think deeply, and they wanted students to question deeply. The levels, again, they went 1 through 8. And how they were set up, they were in ability groups. So, for example, level 1, they were learning letters, those rhymes we just talked about, the first catechism questions that we went over. And then the middle levels, they worked on spelling drills. The Webster Speller was published and used in all the schools starting in 1783 and was used for like 100 years. before the Webster speller, all words were written phonetically, so everybody wrote them differently. But what Noah Webster wanted to do was try to get our language to be exactly the same so that we could understand each other.
Just kind of be on the same page, guys.
Get it? On the same page
Yeah,
in
I
your
did.
letters. Good job, Cydni. So again, the middle levels, they're going to use these spelling drills from the Webster speller. They're going to use Bible reading and reciting the catechisms. The upper levels, they were more into rhetorical or philosophical questions. They had debates, they wrote essays, and they had advanced catechisms. So examples of question differences between the lower and upper levels. So here's what a teacher would ask the younger children. What is God? And the student would reply back, God is a spirit, infinite and eternal. And the older children, their questions changed to something like this. Is there less danger in believing too much or too little? And then students would have to answer.
I love those questions.
I really like the idea of those deeper level questions. And so I wrote a few more down. I just want you to get an idea of the kinds of things they were asking students that were on that level 8. And remember, these are going to be probably somewhere between the ages of 12 and 14, just to kind of get an idea of the age group.
So think about your answer as she reads this. And if you don't have an answer, call Titus. He'll help you out.
He would definitely do a better job than we would. All right, so here's some example questions. Which is a greater evil in society, ignorance or vice? Is liberty better preserved by strict laws or by wise rulers? Which contributes more to human happiness, learning or piety? Is war ever justifiable? If so, under what circumstances? Ought children to obey parents in all things or only in things lawful? So this got them thinking, and they had to have answers to these questions. I loved asking my students tough questions just to see how they would answer. Sometimes their questions were terrible, and other times I would just stand in awe of how smart they were and their well thought out answers. So they are capable of answering these questions, definitely.
Our teachers growing up were more like, if you were to go on a date with me, would you tell your parents? I felt all of those classes.
As you should.
Like, tell someone I went on a date? Heck yes. I would tell everybody. They're like, okay, don't come to class anymore. Those lucky other girls, they knew the answer.
Oh, gross. Okay, so education then should help create good and moral citizens that understood, now this is the important part, responsibility. Now, something that I think is really interesting is our early founders really wanted to follow biblical Hebrew teachings. And so they taught in their school key concepts that were once taught way back in the day to the children of Israel. And maybe this is where we could start as adults with kids around us. One of the things that they taught students is to be productive. They said that idleness was a sin, and that if they wanted to glorify God, they do that through working, using your hands and laboring. But then also, there are certain words in ancient Hebrew that don't exist. And they wanted to make sure that their students and their children understood the words that they were supposed to use instead. So I'm going to give you an example. In biblical Hebrew, there is no such word as a coincidence. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as mere chance, but rather everything is part of divine providence and his divine plan. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's as if somebody added a word to separate God from our daily life. It's taking power away from something so beautiful.
Yeah, that's showing how God is definitely involved in your life. His hand is part of your life. He is taking care of us and watching over us. It is what you just said, Cydni. It's a beautiful part of this life. I mean, this life is hard enough. Why wouldn't you not want to see God's hand in it? Because he's here in the struggle with us. Here's another word that doesn't exist, and this one I wrote down for me, retirement.
You're really living up to that one. You're so biblical.
Thank you. One does not fully retire from productive living. People that were at retirement age were supposed to continue to contribute and share wisdom, and children were taught to respect and care for their elders in return for the wisdom that their elders had gained. All right, this one, oh my gosh, Cydni, I love this one. The word fair does not exist. Oh my goodness, if I could get rid of that word, I would.
I'm actually going to get rid of it in our home now.
The word instead is justice.
I'm going to get rid of that one too, though. Just kidding.
All right. The reason is justice is objective and rooted in God's law, while fairness, on the other hand, is subjective and often self-serving. So when you say that's not fair, it's because you're comparing yourself to someone else or something else and you want to have whatever it is. I love that one. All right. The next one, the word right is not there. Instead, the word responsibility is all over the place. So for example, responsibility is duty-based. It's emphasizing that we have obligations to God and others. So here's an example. You don't have a right to food, but you do have a responsibility to feed the poor. So that's what it was talking about. So no rights, replace it with responsibilities. And when you think of it that way, when we talk about, well, we have a right for this and we have a right for that, our founders wouldn't have seen it that way. They would have said, no, you have a responsibility. The next word I thought was very interesting is there's no word for adolescence. The Jewish life cycle traditionally moves from childhood right into adulthood. And that happens at the age of 12 or 13. And they expected more from their teens. And this is why so many of our founders had graduated all 8 levels and were in college or had a career by the ages of 14 or 16. Is because that's what they were expected to do. Like you were saying, they weren't in school as much because they were working. They were expected to work. Now, I don't want to go back to the coal mines, and I'm glad child labor laws are there. But back in the day, adults expected more from the kids.
What I'm finding so interesting is these words that didn't exist feel to me like the most common words that we use. I thought of in Matthew and also in Luke when it says, which of you, if your son asked for bread, would give him a stone? Or if he asked for a fish, would give him a snake? Of course, we would say, I would never give him a snake. I would never give him a stone. But in so many ways, I feel we are giving generations the stone and the snake over the bread and the fish, that we're giving them the lesser good by creating words that don't exist and giving them a lot of opportunity to be idle and to not work and to have way too much comfort.
I totally agree. And I don't think it's just the kids. That's me. I want to be idle and I want comfort, but I think that is something in our society, however, that is changing. And the reason I say that is I'm thinking of my nieces and you, Cydni. Your age is getting back to the basics.
I did make my own pasta sauce from the garden
See
yesterday.
See what I'm saying?
And I bought some canning stuff. You're invited over to teach us.
Oh, like I know how. You
do.
I always just do what my nieces tell me to do.
Okay, well, you and your nieces are invited.
Okay.
We're having a canning party at the Beers. But I just wanted to go back and say I did actually give my kid a snake.
Yes,
That's
you
true.
did. Did you find the snake? Because it was missing.
My daughter found it while watching a movie in a little hole where our fireplace is set up. There's a hole in the wall to turn it on and off. She saw something moving, like a Harry Potter movie.
Oh my gosh, that is so disgusting.
I know, she called freaking out and I was like, listen, we're trying to have lunch. But I will also add one more thing about that and then you can actually get on track. Anna told me she prayed because she didn't want the snake to go to her house since we're neighbors. And now I'm really upset at Anna because she's so faithful and so good and lovely that I think God answered her prayer, which is fine.
I was praying for you too, Anna, because I didn't want that filthy thing anywhere over by me either. I'm glad they found it.
Oh, it's back in its little habitat.
But going back to why this was important to our founders wanted to have liberty and they wanted to follow God, so their education reflected that. And I think that is something that's really important. And maybe our schools don't reflect this anymore, but it's okay because there's parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends and neighbors and people in our church and our wards that can help. So take time to ask kids deep questions and then listen to what they say. Teach them to think. If we study the people that went before us, we don't need to make the same mistakes. And we can also take the good stuff and we can build on that and grow something really beautiful from it. And if I can give some advice, a really good time to do this is when you're all trapped in the car. That is what my parents would always do when we were trapped in the car with them, was the time that they took to teach and learn and to ask questions. And they tried to make me think. I don't know if I did a very good job, but they tried.
I love that. There's a real thing about car conversations. So take advantage of that powerful time.
It is. We can't change everything, but we can definitely change the conversations that we're having in our homes and around the kids that we love.
You brought up that there's a desire to get back to the basics. And in my studying for this, I came across something that I love so much about pioneering LDS women in education. I love that our foundation starts with some of these women who were so powerful with education. And I did not know that there was a journal or like a newspaper that existed for over 40 years. It's called the Women's Exponent. It got me so excited to know that these kind of women, this was in the 1870s, the stuff they were writing about is incredible. And I feel like if our kids learn more about this type of thing, that they just might find this fire in their soul to learn and to reconnect with some of the basics. But the Women's Exponent was established for the women of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was never owned or sponsored by the church, but it was certainly enjoyed and supported by the church. And the first editor, whose name was Lula Green Richards, she said that she would write this only if she was set apart as a missionary. And that was very important to her. She was only 23, but she was not married. So scandalous.
I have no comment.
They started this because a lot of people believed that the Mormon women were being kind of held down, and they wanted people to know that actually they weren't. They were empowered. So they started a journal, and this was not common for women to have their own newspaper articles going out with such thoughts that they had at this time. And they said in it, "We have no rivalry with anyone, no war to wage, no contest to provoke, yet we will endeavor at all times to speak freely on every topic of current interest and on every subject as it arises in which the women of Utah and the great sisterhood the world over are specially interested." That was in 1872.
I love that.
And I found it so interesting also that when Brigham Young and the pioneers came to Utah, that the women under the system they established were afforded a measure of respect and rights that were not normal at this time. They were allowed to vote because Utah was not yet established by the U.S. government. I just think that's phenomenal. And now, just because I got so excited about some of this information, you have no choice but to listen. And maybe it will spark in you the idea that these women held that if we are created in God's image, then we are like God and we are divine. And that in that divinity, we have a responsibility to grow and to learn, not just in our homes, but in the public as well as we serve. And here's a few women that just might inspire you to continue to learn. Martha Hughes Cannon was a prominent pioneer. She was the first LDS woman sponsored by the church to pursue a higher education out east. This was in 1878. She went on to earn a medical degree in 1878.
You go, girl.
From the University of Michigan, followed by a degree in pharmacy at the University of Pennsylvania. Susa Young Gates, a daughter of Brigham Young, she was an early faculty member at Brigham Young Academy, where she helped establish the domestic science department. Also, Alice Louise Reynolds, an early faculty member at BYU. She was instrumental in developing the university's library. She and Susa Young Gates were encouraged to pursue fields like teaching and literary studies. And then finally, Zena Young Williams Card, a half-sister of Susa Young Gates. She was the early student at BYU and later appointed the first dean of women at the institution.
I love those stories. Can I just add to Martha Hughes Cannon? She was also a Utah state legislator, and when she ran the first time, she unseated her husband.
Why is she so awesome?
I don't know, but she did. So she was the first American woman to have a state legislature position.
I don't know if anything else is more inspiring than this. This is the kind of stuff I want my kids to know. It's just interesting. A lot of people look at religions and often feel like women are so looked down upon. But when I read this, I don't feel that way. I feel so inspired. And their message, I read a few of the articles, they were just, women are so important in the home and outside of the home. Some of us are going to bear children and some of us are not, but we all are in partnership with God and we must get to work. That to me is beautiful. We challenge you this week to spend time with the youth in your life and challenge them to think of deeper things that are meaningful and matter.
This brings us to our final thoughts. In our early American schools, kids were taught to think deeply, to question, to struggle with moral questions, to gain wisdom, and most importantly, to see God's hand in the world around them. They learned responsibility, virtue, and the joy of living with purpose. Maybe we can't go back, but we can ask big questions, listen, and turn everyday moments, even those car rides, into valuable lessons that stick. This is our prayer.
From Cydni and Sher.
I'm forging my way through the tip top. I'm living my life through the drip drop. When eternity's plan, I just can't stop. I'm making my way through the drip drop.
This is not a good sign.
Okay, let's just go home.
Okay. I'm gonna
Class
get my
is
brain.
not in session. Class is over. This is why you get stressed about these topics and I don't. You learn real things that matter. Look at us working together.
What a team.
We're in a one-room schoolhouse technically right now, learning, growing.
Sharing,
Look at us.
giving, watching Rudy destroy his toy.
Well done. And I do like this topic.
Yeah, Cydni made me do it.
This was your idea. Let's
It was
be real.
not. This was your idea.
What?
This was your idea. I said, I don't want to do this. And then you said, but I want to learn about it.
Oh yeah. Learning is great. I love wisdom.
So here I am. We're talking about this because Cydni forced me.
Did you empty the dishwasher? That wasn't the question though. I just wanted you to think about that. Well, Rudy almost fell.
I want to apologize to all the listeners. Rudy has been a treat today.
He's done. To pursue fields like teaching and literal, I can't say it.
Literary.
I need to go to school. Wow.
Literary study.
I can't say it.
Literary.
Literary. We're encouraged to pursue fields like teaching and literary studies. Hallelujah.